going to succeed. Is the heroine who's tied to a pillar in a house and the house set on fire, will she be rescued or will she burn? Well, that takes a tremendous amount of willpower not to go back to find out, and that's what kept the people coming.
And the people did come to see these films. Serials, otherwise known as cliffhangers, were a big part of a day at the movies in the early to mid-1900s.
The mystique of going to a theater and trying to dig up 10 or 12 cents or 15 cents, depending on what neighborhood you went to go on a Saturday afternoon to see a feature film. You know, they would have generally they always call it a 3.5-hour show, which they'd have a couple cartoons and have the news, and they'd end up with a serial or chapter play, and then they'd have a couple B comedies like either Dead End Kids or the Bowery Boys, and either Laurel and Hardy and some short subject, and it was just really a rounded thing. But the thing that you went for every week was the chapters, the serials.
Cliffhangers were aired in parts, commonly referred to as chapters. A different chapter shown just about every week. An entire cliffhanger movie usually consisted of 12 to 15 of these chapters.
For some reason, serials were either in 12 episodes or in 15. There were maybe a few 14s. But essentially, if you think about it, that took you through a whole season. It took you either through the winter or the spring, that's roughly 3 months, or it took you through a summer, or it took you through a fall. So I guess they made serials with the idea, well, we'll run them through this particular season, and then in the next season, we'll change the serial.
And because of the popularity of these films, the producers had years of seasons to accommodate. What was supposed to be a warm-up for the feature film became a star of its own. The premise is simple: good versus evil, with the end of each chapter finding our hero in a life-threatening danger. An explosion, a gunfight, a runaway car, even hanging off of a cliff. Get it? Cliff, hang. Yes, that's where the name comes from.
The idea that by killing off the family one by one, you fall heir to the Benson fortune. I wonder which one of you will be the next to go. You say you know who the killer is?
Yes, certainly.
Well, all right, name him.
All in good time.
More than good time. Oh, the claw!
What is... Oh, nothing to be frightened of. This is evidently an old Indian burial ground.
Yeah, but suppose I'm taken for a redskin, folks.
Quiet, where are you?
Most exciting thing was building up to that big climax at the end when there was going to be something exciting happen to the hero and you kept anticipating it, and they would always build up to it, and it would get more exciting, and then all of a sudden there would be this tremendous explosion, and you would think he couldn't possibly have lived through it, but somehow he did. He always did.
Every week, the hero would somehow escape his dire predicament of the previous week to continue his fight against evil. And eventually, in the final chapter of the movie, he would win. It took the audience many fun afternoons and chapters to see their hero triumph.
He's mixed with a certain chemical, a product of our laboratory. It is so powerful that just a few drops will affect hundreds of gallons of gasoline. And when our work is done, American planes will fall from the skies, helpless, destroyed.
There were many different storylines to the Cliffhangers. some of the more popular themes being westerns, science fiction, and even comic book heroes. But the question remains, if the audience knew deep down that the hero would get out of his dangerous situation every week, and at the end of the last chapter he would finally conquer evil, then why did they keep coming back? Action. That's why.
Stories. There was a lot of story involvement in the serials. As they got later on, they dealt more in action into the 40s. Captain America was another one of my favorites. He looked good, and all the stunts were done by Republic's top stuntmen, Dick Van Siegel, and a few other of their ace stuntmen, and they just looked well, and they choreographed all the fight sequences great. Republic was good at that. They would allow their women to get involved in fights. I mean, like when you go to cowboy theater, you would see a cowboy show, and the ladies would never throw a punch, or they were almost afraid to fire a gun. But Republic threw all that stuff out the window. They would just get in there, and they'd have these women fighting with the men and knocking them out, and they're always getting beat up. But at least they tried, they attempted, and all those kids would just go crazy. There'd be popcorn boxes flying all over. We went nuts.
When people think of the damsel in distress, good versus evil style of early movie making, they usually recall a famous train scene from an early cliffhanger entitled The Perils of Pauline. However, not everyone realizes that this film was shot right in the Delaware Valley.
Hi, I'm Aaron Fleischer. Would you believe that nearly 75 years ago, on these very tracks in New Hope, Pennsylvania, that I am standing near today, one of the most famous scenes in movie history was filmed. This scene was from the classic serial, The Perils of Pauline. Many of you will remember the classic confrontation. The damsel in distress tied to the tracks. The train rushing towards her at high speeds, nowhere to turn. And then suddenly, out of the blue, jumps the hero, unties the heroine, sweeps her up with just seconds before the train rushes over the point.
And that famous scene set the stage for drama for future cliffhangers and early feature films.
There was always a period of innovation and exploration, trying to find out what they could do to make more people come to the movies. But the serial was always a favorite. And a remarkable thing about the early movies, they were able to tell a complete story in just a 100-foot reel of film. Pretty much as though where you have today, when you had the 8mm film, you get a roll of film that lasts about 3 minutes. And it was possible to tell a complete story in that, but it required imagination.
A young actress by the name of Pearl White played the role of Pauline. Miss White began her acting career in 1910, and by 1914 had signed a contract with a Pathé production company. She received $250 a week for doing the Pauline serial. By today's movie standards, this serial was very bad. The effects were often poor, and the stories were basically ridiculous. The only saving grace was Miss White's dazzling performances.
But what Miss White could not foresee was that she was an innovator in a very young but successful style of movie making.
In all, 20 episodes of The Pearls of Pauline were filmed between the years of 1914 and 1923. Though the serial may not have had the budget and technology of today's films, The Pearls of Pauline captured the heart of a generation.
Now that we know what a cliffhanger is and why they were so popular, let's finish by taking a look at two special ones, CINEKYD style.
Listen, my daughter's been missing for over 6 hours. What are their demands? Get back to me when you know the details. Vice President McAllister.
Listen, Mr. President, I think you should give in to them.
But you know how I've never given in to terrorism.
I know how much your daughter means to you.
Well, I'll think about it.
Here's a tape to listen to.
Thanks.
And relax.
Where's the boss?
I don't know, man. He's a busy person. He's got a lot of jobs to attend to. Let me tell you something. Just don't worry about it. Got a pretty little bait here, and all we're waiting for now is the big push. Get away, come on, you.
What's going on here? Bob, you paid him enough to be a bad guy. My father's gonna get you.
Tie her up.
You'll never get away with it.
That's what you think. I gave your father a tape. Once he listens to it, he'll be under my control. Then he's gonna come over here and kill you. Then I'll be president.
Kill her. Kill her. What should I do with it? All right, boys, take up all right. This time, don't screw up.